Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at an Indie Skirmish sci-fi post-apocalyptic living on a giant machine miniature combat skirmish game for about 8 to 10 models called Zone Raiders by Tony Xiao. This is a independently crowdfunded, published, single-person sort of like quasi-RPG campaign game. With some lovely art that is currently available and delivered and for sale. And Tony sent me in only a couple copies of this so we could check it out. Now, if you are into one thing, miniature agnostic games, use any miniatures you like, and two sort of 4x4 scale skirmish sci-fi campaign games in sort of like the I guess the tradition of things like Necromunda, then this is probably the game for you. It has, I guess to give you the MacGuffin, it has a setting which is post-apocalyptic future sci-fi punk. You're living in the remains of the Matryoshka, which is a huge machine. No one knows how big. It could be planet-sized, it could be a Dyson sphere, it could be anything. It's just enormous, so big, and so just collapsed and in ruins that you have to travel by foot. And no one's ever been able to map the whole thing. It has different biomes and different sort of like levels, mega plates, mega strata that you can live in. You can see here some sort of like illustrations of just how conceptually like huge it is. And you represent the human, robotic, and even Morlock sort of gross mutant survivors that live aboard this thing. It's all history is forgotten. It's a little bit. I'm trying to think of like pop culture references people could jump into. It's a little bit Was it Delirium? Was it Delirium? Was the one? The one with the kid from 6 Feet Under, where he wakes up basically and his ship's crashed. He thinks there's like mutant cannibals on board. I think it was Delirium. Delirium? Yeah, I think so. Delirium. Anyway, a little bit rules-wise, like across Infinity and Dark Age, and Necromunda, kind of like having a baby. So you get your background here, the world of the Matryoshka, the Dark Zones, which is what the Zone Raiders are out kind of like trying to scavenge into. And then later on in the faction settings, you're going to get a whole overview of all the different factions that exist. And the factions are more archetypical than they are historic. The idea here is you fill in your own story aboard the Matryoshka or inside the Matryoshka or whatever it is, where you try to find the core. And the core is this legendary thing that either the post-humans live in, which is the people that made this structure, and it's either the salvation or the destruction of everyone. You either have to find it so that everyone can live like they used to, back when the civilization was new and it, whatever made this giant thing you're all living in was how everyone lived. Or it's slowly plotting the demise of every living thing aboard. And the reason for that is there's things there's the various megastratas, places that people live, the stratas of the machine, the different biomes. And inside of the arrangers, which are like Titan-sized robotic like construction things that will just rearrange the detritus and build new structures and kind of like play with the guts of the Matryoshka, like pushing things around. But the reason people, the Legend of the Core, it could be good or it could be bad, is because of the immunocytes. And the immunocytes are these technological creations that are basically designed to hunt down all sentient life and kill it. And buildups of immunocytes are why no social, societies basically last very long. Even the ones that rise from like 100 individuals, where it's like almost like a rogue encampment, into being thousands of people living in like an armored fortified city, eventually more immunocytes build up in the area, and so many build up that they just wipe them out and the cities get destroyed. And there's lots of evidence that there's been huge civilizations with tens of thousands of people living in them that have come and gone basically as the immunocytes build up. So people are constantly trying to break up immunocyte clusters because they kind of form like white blood cells, and then more and more of these machines build. There's like a node basically putting them out, and if you don't break them up before they get too big, then millions of immunocytes all of a sudden overrun your enclave and you die. The post-humans, the name that the survivors give to whoever built the place and whoever's maybe in control of the core at the center of it, which could be the legendary hidden vault that everyone's trying to find. And there's the data plane, which is the technological version of one of the stratas. It's basically the like info noise traveling around the megastructure that you can dip into, and it might be where all the post-humans have gone. There's all kinds of legends about it too, because it's this other sort of like plane of existence where there seem to be conscious things inside of it that don't exist in the real world. And maybe that's what happened. Maybe everyone just transcended and is now living in this data plane existence. You can access it with different sort of like hacking devices and stuff. And the things you're looking for data lore, the different life forms that can be used for food and lubricants and whatever that live in the megastructure, and then zone tech artifacts, which is like your old technology. And so the idea is here that the background's kind of intentionally, it's a very cool MacGuffin because you can build your own society of it and tell your own story. Tony seems to have left it kind of intentionally as a template for people to like build up their own ideas. And then even in the faction section, the factions are all archetypes where a couple of good examples of that archetype of faction is given, but they're not given any like sort of dramatis personae. They're more given like when these types of Zone Raider teams assemble, their background kind of influences how they fight and who they are and stuff. The game itself is fairly simple. Why play Zone Raiders? You can use your own models, you can tell your own story, you can come up with a cool background for the whole thing. It uses d20s, some common terms, dice rolls. Ones are always a success, a critical success, and 20s are always a failure. A stat shed is rolling equal to one of your stats, a bit reminiscent of Dark Age, where you're always trying to roll under a stat. A raid team is your raid team models. Units of models are interchangeable terms for the miniature. Activation is the model it's acting. The game round is complete when everyone's activated all their models. The battlefield's 4x4. Terrain, any object, wall, space, or surface of the board that represents the structures of the megastructure on the battlefield. And your mission leader, whoever's in like charge, and then an area of effect is a circular region that represents an area, such as an extraction zone or a blast radius, and area effects are usually abbreviated as an AOE. Miniatures. You get some guidelines for miniatures. Basically, small is up to an inch tall on a 25mm base. Medium is 25mm base, 1.5 inches. Large is 40mm base, 2.5 inches. Huge is 50mm base to 3 inches. And then they give you rules for model proxying. If you want to use 30, 50, 40, like just be consistent with your base sizes for whatever your campaign is. And they don't really matter. These are guidelines. They're not hard and fast rules. If you want to make specific miniatures for Zone Raiders, great. If you want to use your existing miniature collection on whatever kind of base you want, as long as it is obviously just denoting small, medium, large, whatever, then you'll be fine. Measuring distance of move, it's always front of the base to front of the base. If determining range, it's close to 2 points, and players can measure any distance at any time, providing it's not disrupting their opponent. Line of sight, one model's profile to the other, so it uses just like whatever your volume is, and the battlefield's your 4x4 table. And the most important rule, to quote people who've said this a million times, the objective is to win, but the goal is to have fun and a rewarding game and tell a compelling story. So the game round, beginning of the round, first the initiative. Players roll for initiative, and the winner is the active player who has the turn. Preparation phase, both players regain command points. Let's use a CP system. And then activation plays, active players choose a model to activate. The activated model performs all of its actions, and then turn passes over. So it's alternating activations. You pick a mission for each of you to play. So you don't have one mission everyone's playing, everybody plays their own mission, but certain missions your team has to actually qualify to do. So more advanced missions you can't actually do until your guys become more experienced. And I actually really like this because it means that you're attempting to do something while your opponent's attempting to do something, and it kind of better represents, I think, the fact that these teams are bumping into each other in like the dark zones. They don't really have there's probably not a plan as to who's doing what. They're just showing up to try and get whatever their job is done. So you get all your command points back. Having an active team leader grants 1 command point, which can be used to based on whatever their skill set is and other bonuses that are in play. So you get a CP for your commander being alive, basically. There can be other ways to gain them as well as a bonus. And then activation phase, you activate a model, your opponent activates a model back and forth until everyone's activated. And the end phase, when all models have been activated, it becomes the end phase, and you check to see if anybody won and resolve any end of round effects. So a stat check, it's equal to or under your whatever your statistic is, and then 20 is always a failure, 1's always a success, as I noted earlier. Model states, each model in your team has 4 states: active, downed, eliminated, and extracted. So active is you're on the table when you're doing stuff. Downed is you're incapacitated. Eliminated is you're dead and is taken off the table, and then extracted is if you are downed, you're taken to the board, and there's usually an extraction zone. Your team leader can call an extraction zone for people to carry you to. You actually pick up and carry team members to get them off the table, and it helps them to basically survive the post-game sequence. You have a grand total of 6 stats. You have your speed, how far you can move usually, single action. Shooting, that's your gun stat. Melee, it's your melee stat. Defense, it's your protection against attacks, so you can enhance this by wearing armor. Survival, it's for enduring like hazards like gas and radiation and stuff, and weathering really severe damage, like if you got really, really bad damage. It's basically how you survive the post-game. Models with high survival are more adapted to dangerous areas, and survival is frequently improved with armor. So like you could have a gas mask in your armor or some kind of like radiation shielding or whatever. And then your aptitude, it's more like this is a generic skill. A unit's overall combat awareness, specialty training, and ability to act when injured. Models with a high aptitude are more likely to accomplish special objectives, mark targets for allies, and use special equipment. So aptitude is kind of like your training level. Are you a veteran? Are you a rookie? Everybody gets 2 actions, but equipment and skills and damage can modify this down to 0. If you have 0 actions, obviously you can't do anything, but you can still activate. Basic actions are available to all models, and there's a list of basic actions. So this is dynamic movement. This is all the movement actions, but a list of all the basic actions are basic move. So move your speed. Basic climb. The climb has its own level. You can do a single action climb, which is go up to 4 inches, and I believe up to your speed. And then you can climb more than once to do twice your speed. And you can end climbing as well. But if you get hit by a gun and you're climbing, you'll result in a fall potentially. Make an attack, but then your activation ends. If you make an attack action before moving, you can end your activation immediately. And then reloading, remove all your ammo tokens, and you can make a shooting attack. So you can't make a shooting attack with primary weapons activation or use suppressive fire. So you're not allowed to use your big guns basically while you're reloading in the same turn. You can't do a suppressive fire either. Hunker down, ends your activation, but you get in the hunker down state basically, and then you're -4 to hit. So you're basically improving your cover by leaning into it. Overwatch ends your activation. Let's take an attack against something that acts in your line of sight. Mark a target. Select an enemy target within line of sight, and they're marked. Shooting attacks gain +4 against them until the end of the round, so you call somebody out. And then designate extraction. This is a leader one. Place a 2-inch AoE extraction within line of sight of the model, provided the area doesn't have any enemy with an 8. So you have to pick a part of the table that's on table edge basically, designate a 2-inch AoE, and the enemy can't be within 8 of it. The extraction area remains in place unless designated extraction is used again, or when any enemy contacts the extraction area. So designated extraction may only be done once per round by a team. So basically you designate a place to put that extraction thing, to put people into, to carry them off the battlefield. And then carry, pick up a down model. This model cannot attack while carrying. Dropping the carrier model is a free action. When a model carrying as another is extracted, both models are extracted at the same time. And then advanced. So advanced actions are the ones given you by special rules or gear. So wall running, if you have boosters and stuff. Grappling, so using a grapple gun. Leaping, again with boosters and stuff. Dashing, so it's a special move action. Move 3 times your speed, and then ends your activation. Actually, it doesn't even move your activation, it just costs 2 actions. Interface, suppressive fire, aimed attack, and heal, so removing a wound. And those are all usually granted by like a skill or an ability or something like that. But your dynamic movement, the idea here is that the intention by the designers that they want you jumping up stuff, climbing stuff. You know, you're gonna have a Necromunda style table or an Infinity style table. The table should be interactive. People should be doing things on it. And so you're allowed to do all these things like a basic move or a basic climb. You can wall run with special equipment, grapple and leap with special equipment, and then dashing again if you have the special skill to do so. What else we got? Combat, pretty simple. Declare a target, make sure they're in line of sight, and if they have cover, declare the target's value. So it's your shooting stat plus any modifiers. So things like if they're in cover, they get +2 to the defense and you're -2 to your stat. Hunkered down, -4 to your stat. Overwatch shot, -2 to your stat, because it's hard to shoot something that's emerging and moving. Target's over effective weapon range, -4. In melee, -4. If it's marked, it's +4. In a crossfire, it's +4. So a crossfire is defined as when completely exposed to potential enemy fire from multiple attackers, the model becomes especially vulnerable. An attacker can gain the crossfire bonus if an exposed target is also exposed to other active models in the attacker's team or within the effective range of their weapons. And Overwatch attacks never get crossfire. So if you have 2 models that both have like unrestricted views to another model, you get a crossfire bonus when you're shooting it. Attacker has the high ground for +2, target's point blank for +4, means it's in point blank range with its gun, and the attacker's penalty for each suppression token is -4 if they've been hit by suppression. And then make a shooting check, so roll and try and get equal or under. If it's successful, it's a hit, otherwise it's a miss. The target may use the taking fire rule. If the target's hit, they make an armor check. If the target's armor has failed, they've taken damage and must make a damage check. Special suppression fire and taking fire. If you're taking fire, when it's fired upon by a shooting attack but not down, it may make a basic move 1 inch in any direction after it's resolved. So basically, models never stay exactly where they are when you shoot them. They start to like lean towards cover or move away or try and get a line of fire. And then you got ammo values. Most primary range weapons have limited ammunition. Weapons with numbered ammo values, such as 1 or 2, gain an ammo token each time they're used. In the shooting attack, they cannot be used without reloading if they have an ammo value equal to or greater than their ammo. So like every time you fire, you gain an ammo token. Whatever your ammo value is, once you reach it, you have to do a reload action to basically put more bullets in your gun. Melee attacks, basically the same process. You're setting a value. So if you charge, you get +2. If they are in or behind difficult terrain during the charge, -4. In contact with multiple opponents, -2 per opponent. Multiple friendly models in contact with the opponent, +2. Overwatch attack, -2. Targets an object, it automatically hits. Penalty for suppression tokens, -4. Penalty for each wound, -2. If you're using a power attack, +2 strength, it's -4. So it's actually relatively, there's not a lot of bonuses for hitting in melee, but there's lots of penalties. You get a charge bonus, and then you get gang up bonuses. Most every other thing's a penalty. And then taking damage, an armor check. So if you're behind cover, you get +2 to your defense, and that's your defense stat. You're basically hit by a weapon, you have whatever the defense modifier is for that weapon, and then, which is what their strength value is, and then you get your check equal for equal to or less than whatever that is. If you fail your armor check, you make a damage check. On assessment, the model has, it's basically your survival stat plus any armor bonuses minus the damage of the gun. And so on a success, the model suffered an injury but may still be able to fight. The model suffers 1 wound. On a failure, the model suffered an injury too severe to keep fighting. They take a wound, but they're also downed. So you can actually not lose all your wounds, but still be downed. Because you just get a bad survival roll. Models do not have a survival stat. Always check only 1 wound if they reach the damage check step. And then taken out, when a model takes out the enemy, it means the model's attack has caused the enemy to become downed or eliminated. And then wounds. A wound represents the injuries and damage that reduce the model's ability to fight. For each wound model they get, at the beginning of its activation, to make an aptitude check. On a failure, they lose a possible action. So your wounds basically reduce the amount of actions you have each turn. The model's down when it receives a 3rd wound, as even the toughest of fighters can be brought low from injuries, and excess wounds have no effect. So wounds, you don't really, it's because you don't have a wound stat in this game. It's more, wounds are more like flesh wounds are in a game like Kill Team. They pile up and they make you less effective at fighting, so you're kind of like getting slogged down by them. Skills, again, can allow you to ignore wounds or aptitude checks or whatever, but they don't reflect, they're not a hit point stat, basically, is what I'm trying to say. They're more like a modify your abilities stat and force you to make more checks. And then your armor can fail. You can hit objects and damage them, push people, fall, scatter and stuff. And then extractions. Basically, this is the place you're trying to get to when you're down. If you want to basically be less likely to die. Bugging out. When facing casualties and few options left, the team may decide that their losses are too great and try and bug out. When a round ends and a player has less than half the number of active models left, they may choose to bug out. Each model may move 8 inches away from any enemy models. Each model more than 8 inches away from any enemy models is just removed from the game and counts as extracted. When models extracted in this way, they carry any mission-specific tokens they're carrying, so you can't bug out and still win, basically. And then when an enemy model is within 8 of a model it's forced to bug out, a clean escape may not be possible. They must make a survival roll. If they fail this roll, they're taken out at the end of the game and will suffer all post-mission consequences. And then finally, command points. At the prep phase of each round, the team gains a command point and may spend it later on to represent your leadership from your team. So if you have an active mission leader, you generate a command point each prep phase. Some raider skills, equipment, or team doctrines can increase your command points. Any unspent command points are lost at the end of the phase. So if you don't spend them, they're not used. You use them for coordination. Command point may be spent to activate a model back-to-back without passing a turn. Endurance, a command point can be spent to automatically pass an aptitude check at the beginning of a wounded model's activation to prevent them from losing an action. And focus, a command point can be spent to grant a reroll to 1 die, an attack or stat check during your activation. So you basically use them for a reroll, to ignore an aptitude check for failing to lose an action, and then for coordinating to do a double activation. You only have 1 basically each round unless it somehow gets modified. And then common effects recap, so wounds, make an object test, downed, armor failure, out of ammo, marked, overwatch suppression, and hunker down. More cool art. And then setting up a game. So you place the terrain and set up the table, privately choose mission objectives and roll for initiative, and then each player reveals their mission and sets up all their mission-related special setup items. Roll generate any battlefield special conditions. So the battlefield's pretty cool. Zone Ranger's game, it takes place in a dark zone, and a dark zone is effectively a spot it's not really habitable, but there's cool junk there to steal and bring back to your local bastion of safety. And sometimes it's like weird automated factories still running, life forms that could be salvaged, old tech, barely running computers, whatever. But also that creates like weird environmental effects. So it's a little bit stalker slash, roadside picnic slash, how's that great? Annihilation, where like things are just getting weird out there. And there can be special effects basically for the table where stuff, the gravity's not working, or you're in upside down, inside out land where everyone just turns inside out if they walk into a certain room. You deploy teams, and the first round begins. So deploy, there's 3 types of deployment detailed below. Both players may use different deployment types depending on their personal missions. Deployment occurs after missions are revealed and after battlefield conditions are generated. A model may never deploy within 12 inches of an enemy deployment area. So no matter what your deployment is, you can't be within 12 of the enemy's deployment as well. So there's edge, choose an edge and have all within 12, all in contact with the edge. Area, choose an area of the table and deploy all models within 8 inches of the edge of that area. Insert deployment, choose a point anywhere on the table farther than 12 from enemy deployment. And deploy within 4 inches of this point. A player may choose to use edge deployment instead of insertion deployment for their team. So these are the 3 ways you can enter the table. And so yeah, generate special battlefield conditions. Each player rolls a die to determine the results of what the conditions are. The players that roll the result is allowed to place the first of any objective terrain, and then they alternate placement with their opponent. Once all special conditions are generated, the players may deploy. So you could have 1 to 3 bad feeling about this. A dark emergence occurs on an 18, 19, or 20 for each initiative each round. If your campaign does not use dark emergences, then nothing happens. So your campaign special rules can have weird bad things come out of the walls. 4 to 8's a hazard zone. Place 3 areas of a single type outside the deployment area. So radiation areas, thermal or chem hazards, and nano containment clouds. And they're just areas of effect that are bad. Zone tech arrays, supply caches, extra supplies, that's cool. An immunocyte presence, there could just be immunocyte generators and neural scorchers, so like little crab people that are gonna murder you, robot crab people. A nanofabricator with extra data nodes, a biomedical reconstructor, a cryo chamber that could have somebody in it, and then a quantum anomaly. A quantum anomaly randomly scatters d20 inches in a random direction, and then roll again on the hazard zone's result. So quantum anomaly means there's more than one, and there's a quantum anomaly there. And then you begin the round. And in the end game, the goal is to achieve as many VPs as possible, and whoever gets the most wins, otherwise it's a draw. And mission results give you specific rewards and losses. So lots of different missions, scavenging run, data mining. And you'll see here you get a 10 model deployment cap, a 10 model deployment cap. So basically you can never have more than 10 models usually. This one's 8 models for neutralize immunocytes and capture prisoners. Selective termination, you're trying to kill somebody, deep penetration. And then you get to your advanced missions. Oops, mass destruction, an advanced mission, railjacking. You can only be selected if the team has 6 or more tactics resources. And those are things you can find throughout the course of a campaign. You could try and jack one of the maglevs. Automated forge, if you have 6 or more tech resources, you can do this one. Extreme hazard, 6 or more bioresources. You can find the radiation hazard and thermal things. And they give you extra stuff. So there's all kinds of terrain rules for hazards, low visibility, chasms, ducts, zip lines, sealed doors. Like you can just make all this stuff and stick it on the table if you want. And then restricted objects, so special objects to interact with. Your immunocyte objects, the robots are trying to kill you. And then we have optional module at dark emergence. A dark emergence can prove to be a dangerous surprise. The best made plans, when they occur, it's up to the natural sense and grit of each zone raider to make it through alive. Players may elect to, before a campaign, to use the dark emergence add-on, as potentially allows for unexpected battlefield changing conditions to occur during a game. Both players roll in dark emergence at the same time. A rare double has occurred. Both players then roll in dark emergence table, and both results happen. So things like a radiation spike happens on the table. There's an immunocyte invasion. A meta demon can arrive. Photonic nullification, sniper fire, just people start shooting at you. And a huge ranger starts to like rearrange the battlefield while you're playing. Priority beacons, lone wanderer, the mysterious figure shows up, an amnesiac android, so the android doesn't know who he is, or a time paradox. So all kinds of cool stuff can happen. Piles of like different advanced weapons, armor, and equipment. It feels a little what's the video game called? Destiny, you know, in its tech level basically, like a post-apocalyptic, super high tech. You can you can have a scrap club or a chain cutter, kinetic gauntlet, like a power fist, industrial claws, and then everything from a slug gun to a heavy isotope cannon for like ranged weapons, scrap pistols to plasma burners, and then crazy grenades, cryonic grenades, thermal grenades, flash grenades, standard armor, survival suits, light exoskeletons, armored carapace, mobility frame. Magnetic boots, tech jammers, interface decks, smoke canisters, and defensive matrix. Get all kinds of cool gear that you can buy, and all its costs. And then all the different sort of like story background stuff for the technology of the post-singularity, the kind of stuff you're carrying around. Weird artifacts, a Schrodinger rifle that makes people exist and not exist at the same time. Waveform collapsers, portal devices. You can get a portal gun. You can straight up get a portal gun. There you go. I love it. And then you keep playing your campaign games. So you get 750, I guess it's, was it resource requisition units, resource units to build your army. And then if you want, after a campaign's over, so if you've got 50 more resources, you can try and do the 2 end state missions. So retrieve the cipher and the partition. So you're trying to get to the next like strata or find the core. And then whoever wins if you complete the partition before anybody else, then you're considered the winner, which is a special mission. So it does have an end state. I do like that. I like how. So one, I like the freeform building. You'll see the teams in a second. I like that you can kind of like build and equip your guys to whatever models you find, because that's a great thing in any kind of like miniature agnostic game. If you find a miniature you really like, you want to be able to use it in the game. I'm probably going to repurpose my miniatures from what was the Osprey game called? Junkers, Retributors, the salvage game. I played with Greg a whole bunch. Scrappers. I'm gonna probably repurpose my Scrappers crew because they fit this like feel of the game and play some games, and I like that I can't think of something so far that I don't have the rules for. I can make it up. And then after the campaign's over, you can recruit your veteran team members into a new team if you want to, and keep hiring them. Then your special campaign missions and your post mission stuff. So after a game, it's got your standard post mission sort of like tables. You check for casualties, determine your resource income, and then resolve advancements for surviving units. Player gains team resources and can recruit units, equipment, and select doctrines. So roll d20. On a 7, it allows you fine. 8 to 9, psychological shock. You don't gain any XP, and you lose all currently saved XP because you're spending XP as you go from a pool. 10 to 12, slow recovery. You're gonna miss a game, and you start with a wound that cannot be healed during that game. Physical injury, so the model suffered a deep injury, so you can be reduced by your speed, shooting, melee, survival aptitude can be reduced by 1 depending on d20 roll. 17 to 18, you didn't make it, you're dead. And 19, but you keep your inventory. And then 19 plus, total lost, and all your equipment was lost. If your opponent won, roll for every item the model is carrying, and 11 plus, your opponent gains that item, otherwise the item's lost. So 19 plus, you give your opponent all your stuff. I think that's cool that you can scavenge all of his gear, because they would. I mean, that's the whole point of this game is raiding zones. You get some income. Roll the income table to determine how much resources you scrounged. You might also get mission rewards. And then you get to, if you're winning, roll twice and pick the best result on the table. Supply cache table. If the team recovered a supply cache, then roll for each supply cache tamed on here. So like what kind of gear you found. And that's how you gain resources, sorry. So like techno data lore, viable nanogel, and map fragments are how you're gonna find tactics, bio team, and tech team resources. That unlocks your advanced missions you can go on, as well as the extra stuff you need to actually complete and win the campaign. Check for advancement. The winning team gains 4 team XP and the losing team gains 2. You can now allocate your team XP gained to any number of models. And then increasing a level. When a model increases level, it can choose from 2 options below on how hard earned experience turns into practical improvements. Stat increases cannot exceed your maximums. So you can either train harder for rolling once in the advancement table, then choose to gain a skill, or roll twice in the advancement table if you have natural talent. So train harder means that you choose to gain a skill and roll in the advancement table, or just go natural talent and just roll twice on here and just freeform it. Just be like, whatever, let the dice decide. I like that. When a model has more XP than its level, it advances and increases level by 1. So if you're starting at level 1, 1 XP will take you to level 2, and then you have to earn 2 XP to get to level 3. And I think that's a very clever, simple scaling way of increasing your level. So even after the first game, you could have you can only advance once per game. So in the first game, whoever wins is going to advance 4 players to level 2, right? And then the first player, even the player that loses, is going to get to advance at least 2 guys, which I think that's clever. Like you get twice as much advancement, but then you're slower to advance next game, because now even if you win the next game, only 2 models are going to advance, but your opponent's also going to have 2 models advance at the same time. You basically slow down, so you're not going to run away that fast. Gain team resources. Every team has a degree of institutional knowledge. So tech resources, bio resources, and tactics resources again. In a mission, the winner may allocate 2 points to increase any combination of team resources. Any player that did not win can allocate 1. So you're always going to get 2 team resources if you win. And if you didn't win, you get 1 extra one on top of any that you find from salvaging crates and barrels and whatever. And then new recruits, doctrines, and purchase gear. So doctrines, when a team meets the team resource requirement, they may enable a doctrine. Add this doctrine to the raid team's doctrine list. All effects from this doctrine will go into the next game. A team may have 3 doctrines enabled at any time, but may remove them to free up a slot at a cost of paying 30 RU. So doctrines are basically what these resources, tactics, whatever, add to your team. And when you buy one, you fill up a slot. Once your 3 slots are active, you can buy them off to buy new ones. And you don't basically, like, you can mix and match. So you don't go down in tech when you buy them. It's just you have to add extra Y amount of tech basically in order to unlock them. And that can be things like terrain sensors once per game setup. You can reroll any one of the generate battlefield conditions tables. So you can just reroll if you don't like what you got for your battlefield conditions. Superior logistics, it's 8 for tactics, but you get +2 to all deployment caps. So you can have a lot more dudes all of a sudden. 2 extra fighters for when your tactics get to 8. But these are huge requirements all of a sudden to increase these. Skills, you can have general skills anybody can get to. Tech skills, it'll say what skills you have accessible. Bio skills and tactic skills. And then here's your factions. So creating a raid team, 750 RU to do it. Technomads, they're wandering around. You can get some examples, the Hunter Seeker Tribe and the Silicon Reavers. These are the ones that are always on the move. They don't want to find a location because they get run over. You can hire people like a Pathfinder, that's your leader. Seeker Adepts and Seeker Novices, they're like your gangs and your juvies. A Data Runner, who's the one that's going to have an affinity to like hacking and stuff. And an Outrider, who's like a sneaky dude. Zone adaptation, their faction gear. So this is stuff they start off with. Things like Electro Daggers, a Nomad Mag Repeater, and Arc Casters. These are things that only they can buy. They can always buy the general gear. Faction equipment like a Duct Mapper, Heirloom Data Discs, Faction Doctrines, because each faction has their own doctrines as well that you can buy. Strip for parts. You may permanently discard 1 piece of non-artifact gear between missions to gain its full RVU and value. So that's pretty cool. You can get the money back basically for it. Battle language at Tactic 6, your mission leader may spend 1 action and end its turn immediately to activate a friendly model within 16, even if it activated already this turn. That's awesome. Zone Stalkers, these are literally stalkers from Stalker. Zone Wardens, Scout Stalker, Trespasser. If you wanted to make some stalkers from Stalker, like post-Soviet Singularity miniatures, that would be perfect. Reclaimers, these are your power armor dudes who've actually like built a city basically. These are like the standing militia. I love the story for the Iron Aegis ones. They've left their like strata to go to another one. They're trying to find tech to stop the millions of immunosites that are attacking their city and have been attacking their city for decades. Like they're basically permanently under siege, and so they have to like try and either find an escape route or find tech to defeat this huge build of immunosites that they can't possibly hope to fight their way out of, and slowly destroying the city over like the course of decades. They're just always under siege basically. It's super cool. And you can see here these are like the heavy power armor, like heavy dudes. The Morlocks, the mutants. Genetic hybrid outcasts. These are the folks that they're not quite human anymore. They're kind of weird. Chieftains, Hulkers, Reaver Warriors, Unblooded, and Wanderers. The Atropics, Techno Life. These are like your sort of weird androids. They might be androids. They might just be like pit slaves. An Apex Overseer, a Class 3, Class 2, or Class 1, and then a Class X recombinant. Can only be recruited once an enemy model is killed. All stats the killed model stats, but modified as above. So you make a zombie, basically. They're kind of like the Undead faction. The Nth Gens, Synthetic Self-Evolving Life. These are more like the Chappie robots. So they're pretty like hardcore fighty Roy Batty androids. The Exanthropes, technobiologically enhanced. So these are like the Space Marine, basically, people. Enhanced humanoids, the Ascendant, the Champion, the Aspirant, the Combat Automata. And then special units. So these are, they can be recruited normally, but can only be gained, cannot be recruited normally and only gained for special effects. So the Mysterious Lone Wanderer, these are basically your hired guns. A Seeker Knight, an android that doesn't remember who it is, a Wandering Traveler, a Heavy Industrial Robot. They show up during games, basically, and can join your faction if you do the right thing. And then playing an AI game, so playing against AI bad guys, like the Immunosites, Harvesters and Reapers, Behemoths and Metademons. And then optional module, mechanized vectors. Having a big vector. You know, one vector in your roster, and it's basically a huge guy. So a giant robot suit, because you gotta have giant robot suits. These are tags, basically, for this game. Standard type vectors, so like an operator mounted one and autonomous ones. And you get your rules for vectors. Playing competitively, tournament rules, co-op rules, hostile factions, marauders. Some are like, these are basically like your techno-barbarians showing up and fighting you. Cooperative missions, the scrap heap, rescue, rear guard, and then some appendixes like the topography and your quick reference and stuff too. So I'm pretty stoked about this. This looks really neat. It's got a whole bunch of stuff going for it that I really like. I like the open, sort of open air setting of the giant megastructure that everyone's living in. I love getting more use out of my toy soldiers I don't play with very often. I haven't played my scrapper crew in a while, so having like an excuse to dust it off and play some games I think is going to be fun. And I think that this would work as a great rule set for everything from like a stalker style roadside picnic campaign through like a high-tech even Blade Runner style campaign. You got everything here you need. If you want to jump into the actual like sort of like universe that Tony's made here, I think that's fantastic. But this is a great just sci-fi template for playing lots of different tropes, I think, and you know, getting more mileage out of your model collection. So great job, Tony. This is just a labor of love. Did this all himself. Wonderful art he commissioned, and big thanks to him and all the folks that helped crowdfund this, because this is a nice, very nice hardcover book. It's gonna look great on my shelf, and I'm stoked to give it a go. So look forward to a Let's Play in the future. We'll be jumping and giving it a shot, yeah, just giving it a steer. So you'll be able to see some games getting played pretty soon, probably after Christmas, because that's when we'll jump into some new projects. But until then, hopefully this review holds you over. So big thanks for watching. Next time, MASH. Happy gaming. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support the channel, of course, like and subscribe and hit the little bell below so you get notifications when I post future content. I do post stuff 7 days a week. If you want to support the channel further, you can, of course, buy a t-shirt through Spreadshirts, buy a measuring gauge or objective markers from Death Ray Designs, or, of course, most importantly, there is Patreon. Patreon is what makes all this possible, keeps the lights on, pays for the studio costs, pays for the equipment, model costs, and everything else, and most importantly, puts food in my kids' bellies and a roof over their heads. Big thanks to everyone, past, future, who supported me. I do this stuff because of you guys, and of course, I will continue doing it as long as I can.